Hello, everyone. My name is John. I'm a member of faculty at the Department of Sociology and Social Work at KNUST in Ghana. And I'm an early career researcher on a British Academy-funded project on old parks and new futures, examining the relevance of an old park in Ghana's second city, Kumasi, that is Kumasi's Jubilee Park or Jackson Park. This project is led by Professor Ben Jones of the University of East Anglia in UK, Professor George Bob Miller of KNUST, and Professor Karin Lauterbach of the University of Copenhagen. As part of this research, we investigated how urban parks have different meanings and are of different use for different users. And in this presentation, I present on the unique experiences of migrant coconut sellers who occupy one of the pavements that surround this Jubilee Park that we studied. So by way of introduction, I want to ask this question: what is the value of an urban sidewalk for young male migrant workers? And as I earlier indicated, I want to focus this paper on a discussion not necessarily of their economic use of the sidewalk, but rather on how the sidewalk serves as a space for building social relationships, for maintaining some kind of kin or familial relationship, and as a place where they can dream and hope for a better future. And I place this research within the literature on urban sidewalks in general. The existing literature on urban sidewalks mostly describes sidewalks as of use for urban actors, especially as a space for economic activity. And when you read the literature, there are several concepts that I use to describe how urban actors use the sidewalk. One of the concepts is the temporality of urban sidewalks and its uses, and the fact that different activities take place on the sidewalk at different times of the day, and sometimes even during different seasons. And this diverse use of the sidewalk is also an important concept in the literature on urban sidewalks. The fact that urban actors have diverse uses for sidewalks, and at one point in time, a sidewalk may be relevant for a specific group of actors as an economic space, and then in the same day at a different time, it may be used as a social space or as a political space, and for different reasons. So the concepts of temporality and use diversity are two important concepts that are used to describe the use of urban sidewalks in the literature in general. Another important concept is the concept of sociability, how sidewalks enable the creation of conversations and the building of networks among urban actors, especially for those vulnerable urban actors who may live in environments that do not necessarily allow for the production of social relationships and networks. And so the urban sidewalks, frontages, and other pavements serve as places where otherwise strangers or people in neighboring communities can meet and have conversations and maintain networks and establish new or reinforce existing relations. And according to Mehta and Bossin in 2010, some of the physical characteristics of sidewalks that enable the production of this social characteristic is the fact that these sidewalks must provide the opportunity for actors to personalize it, as in create or impose their own characteristics on the sidewalk. There should be provisions for, say, seating and shelter, or a place where they can stand and have a conversation. And that when a sidewalk has all these characteristics, they create that platform for the creation or for the existence of social characteristics on the sidewalks. And these are all important concepts that are used to describe urban sidewalks in the literature. In this research, however, I focus on the use of a sidewalk, a pavement that surrounds a park. Unlike other studies that discuss sidewalks in relation to main streets or congestion on streets, I deviate from this literature and focus on a sidewalk that is surrounding an urban park, that is Kumasi's Jubilee Park. And I examine how the unique characteristics of the park and the presence of municipal authority on the park allows some kind of permanence of presence by these coconut sellers, and which then allows them to create some kind of bonding and relationships that goes beyond the social that has been described earlier. Now, I want you to picture this as a normal day on the sidewalk surrounding Jubilee Park. The images that I show here, in the first image, you see wheelbarrows that are turned and are leaning on the wall with black tarpaulins. And these are things that the young men use as a form of shelter when they are on the sidewalk. By evening, they turn the sidewalk using their wheelbarrows, novel tools, to create a form of shelter that allows them to sleep and have some peace. And during the day, economic activities on the pavement turn becomes the focus, and they use the pavement for economic activities. Now, this is what I aim to describe in detail in the subsequent presentations. The main methods that we used in this research was observations. I did a lot of observations on the sidewalk over a period of 8 months. I had several semi-qualitative conversations with the coconut sellers as well as some of the community members. There were some semi-structured interviews and some what others have called sidewalk cartography, where I sat down by the pavement and I drew my visual impression of what I was looking at, etc., etc. The way the data was analyzed was both iterative and concurrent, such that the day data collection began is the day that we started analyzing and reflecting on the meaning of the information we are getting, and using subsequent forms of data collection to give a broader understanding of the information that we are getting from the field. In presenting the results, I present under 3 key themes: how coconut sellers access this pavement using their own familial ties, and how they maintain the pavement through structures that are very similar to what happens in families and in communities. And I describe how their everyday life on the pavement is beyond the selling of coconuts. So these coconut sellers are migrants from other parts of Ghana, and they are mostly from the central region. They are all Fantis, and all of them indicate to us researchers that they know each other from their communities before they came to the sidewalk. And before one comes to the sidewalk has a history with this particular group of coconut sellers. According to some of the information that they shared with us, they indicate that before the park was walled, their relatives, some of whom had already stopped selling coconuts, were selling on the park. And so when the park was walled, their relatives were asked to sell behind the wall on the park. And this is how come they have come to meet the pavement to this day. So they link their presence on the pavement to the history of the park itself. And each time someone is coming from their village to work in Kumasi, they use this kin or familial relationship as a way of getting access to the pavement so that they can come and sell. So one of the leaders, who they all call father, and he serves more or less as a father or parent of this group, indicates that we are all from the same community. We know each other's family and parents. If any new person comes from our hometown, we will help the person settle in. Sometimes we give them money and teach them the job until they are able to stand on their own 2 feet. So we are like a family here. And this perception of kinship or familyhood on the pavement runs through a lot of the narratives and conversations that we had with the coconut sellers. Another one, young coconut seller that I spoke to, I refer to here as JD, explained that when I first came to Kumasi, I roamed the town a bit till around 3 p.m. when I saw one of the guys from my hometown who brought me here. When I came here, I realized that a lot of my hometown guys were around. So it was easy for me to come here. And since they are my guys, I didn't need to come here with a lot of money, because when you don't have money to go for goods, someone can just give you money to go for coconut, so that when you come back, you pay the person. From both narratives, we see a strong theme of family emerging, and the fact that this family is not only used to welcome and socialize people into the lives of the street, it also serves as a form of social capital, where people get access to a startup capital to begin their business on the streets of Kumasi. So by establishing presence on the pavement, by maintaining that presence on the pavement, they are giving other young people in their communities, from their communities of origin, an opportunity to come to the city and make some life for themselves. And this is interesting. So when I use the term familial sidewalk or familial pavement, I'm referring to this characteristic of the pavement that is a bit different from other sidewalks that we've studied in the city of Kumasi. And in addition to helping people access the sidewalks, the group of coconut sellers also have structures and regulations that everyone has to follow. And these structures are determined by the leaders, and they work in a way of a family. So for instance, the father, the leader of the group, indicates that when they arrive from the village, we have a structure, a set of rules that everyone must follow. And those who refuse to obey and respect our structure, we will send them away, because we can't allow you to, for instance, litter the pavement or do anything illegal. When you do so, you invite unnecessary attention from the authorities, and that affects us all. And he goes on to say that we are all from the same community in Cape Coast. So this is our little community here in Kumasi. And by making this statement, he's indicating how they've transported the community life from their communities of origin into the sidewalk or the pavement of a new city, and how that community life then gives them a form of structure or organization within which everyone can fall under, very similar to what happens in their home. And to an extent, they serve as each other's protection, and they serve to maintain, they work together as a family to maintain some kind of order and cleanliness on the street as a way of protecting each other. So one of the other young people, Kofi, also indicates that we are each other's keeper. We are our own police, military, and even town council. And in our Ghanaian context, the town council are the people who ensure that there is hygiene and cleanliness within communities and within community spaces. So by saying that we are our own town council, he is indicating that they make sure that each person lives up to the cleanliness standard that Father alluded to earlier. So on the pavement, there are structures, and these structures help to maintain the sense of family that allows other newcomers to seamlessly merge into the life of coconut selling on the streets of Kumasi. Now, in addition to having this structure, they use the same family structure to take care of each other and to protect each other. And I remember I was having a conversation with one of the young guys, and I asked, what happens if somebody does not go to work? And this is what he told me, that if you don't go to work even a day, someone will check up on you and ask you why you didn't go to work. Sometimes the person in question does not have money to go for coconut to sell. So in that case, when you realize that one of us can give that person money to go for the coconut. And Kwaku, another young person, emphasized this point. He begins by saying, exactly, even right now, my mom has called me that she doesn't have money. And he's referring to his mom in their community of origin. So I should send her money. So in case I send her the money and I don't have money for food or something I want to buy, I can ask any of my brothers here to loan me some money, so I give it back to them. And for me, the mention of any of my brothers here is indicative of how close this group of coconut sellers feel to each other, and how they've established some form of family relationship on the sidewalk, a relationship that they use to protect each other, to take care of each other. And he goes on to say that, so here we are like brothers and a family. And this characteristic, once again, is very different from the characteristic that we see on other sidewalks in the city of Kumasi and in other parts of Ghana. Rarely do we see a sidewalk made up of actors, urban actors, who use family as a bond, or who create a semblance of family on the sidewalk and maintains that familial structure on the sidewalk consciously, and consistently, and use that to also bring in and socialize other people from their community. So this is an interesting characteristic that emerges from this sidewalk in the city. Now let's take a short look at their lives on the city. I asked them to share images that reflect their lives on the cities, and this is one of the images that was shared. And one of the participants who shared the image indicates that we usually take pictures like this in order to document how life is here, so that in the future we can look back and have something to say. And when you have a conversation with them about the pictures they've taken, there is always the anticipation of a future that would be better, and the fact that what they are living on the pavement is only a means to an end. So I argue that this present future narrative is captured and reflected on and aspired to within the unique context of the pavement. And the pavement therefore serves as a place of hope. It is a place where they can work and earn an income today, and also to hope for and aspire for something better in the future. So the pavement does not only become a space that they work and get some economic livelihoods, it also becomes a space that they are able to establish a sense of family, and it also becomes a space that provides or affords some hope or aspiration for the future. And then sometimes they spend time relaxing or unwinding after a long day's work. And this is one of the other images that some of the participants shared. And he describes it in this way. We're talking about ourselves. We were discussing our personal life issues among ourselves, and there was a challenge among us. So we're discussing it. And usually they spend the day, the long day, in the evenings, they spend it on the pavement, creating what has been described as a sociable sidewalk, putting benches there and having a conversation among each other. And that sidewalk then in the evenings become very open, where anyone who is passing by can just stop and engage in the conversation. And they are a very welcoming group, even though all the people who stay there are family or from the same community. Anyone is welcome to have a conversation at the end of the day when they are seated and they are reflecting on their lives, and they are having fun, making jokes, and thinking about the future and what the future holds for them. And these are some of the images that we developed from the field. And basically it describes how the economic lives is intricately linked with their social lives, and how even during economic production, they provide benches and create that sociable space that was described earlier, where people can sit, wait, and have a conversation, even during the time of prime economic activity. But then, as earlier discussed, at the end of the day, they play and they have fun when things are relaxing, and they have drafts that they play, and everyone is invited to partake in it. So basically what I've described is a multi or diverse use pavement that somehow serves both economic and social purposes, and allows for the creation of a semblance of family relationships among migrant workers. And all these characteristics are so important to the ability of these migrant workers to remain grounded, to have a future or an aspiration that they can look forward to, and allow them the strength to go from day to day and keep on their businesses. So by way of conclusion, I reiterate the question I asked earlier: what's the value of an urban pavement for vulnerable migrant youth? And what our research has explored is how the value of a sidewalk, in this case by Kumasi Jubilee Park, by migrant coconut sellers, how this sidewalk goes beyond economic to include creating a semblance of family within urban spaces. A pavement family that not only provides socialization functions, but also provides social protection for its members. Our findings also emphasize and contributes to the literature on use diversity and temporality on urban sidewalks. It also demonstrates the sociable quality of urban sidewalks. But what is different and what we emphasize is how the quality of the sidewalk allows for the production and continuation of stable familial relations that is different from what is seen on other sidewalks in urban areas in Ghana. And so we refer to this as familial sidewalks and propose it as an alternative way of classifying sidewalks and sidewalk uses in Ghana. So this is the end of my presentation, and I add here a few references that I refer to. I hope that you enjoyed listening to this presentation. We've created a website for this project that we'll share for you to visit, and then you can read more about the research that we are doing on Jackson Park in Kumasi. Thank you, and I'm grateful for listening.